Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Let's give a couple of minutes for folk to gather, and we'll get started. Okay, well, 2 minutes past the hour. We don't have a big crowd today, but we will get started. I think 2 minutes is a good enough wait anyway. So welcome everybody to the SIG-1 meeting. This is the first of 2024, January 8th. So that's the agenda. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. So we'll just get started with a few housekeeping topics, and then we'll get into the working group updates. If there is any question, any things you'd like to add in the agenda, feel free to ask now. Okay, so Happy New Year, everybody. I think for most of us, it's a new year. I think for some of us, it might be coming later. But anyway, I hope for those that had some time off, you enjoyed your holidays, and now you're fully relaxed and ready to get going with 2024. We need that, focused on Mefio. So any good spirit wishes that you might have, I'm going to tailor them. I'm going to funnel them to Mefio success. With that, I believe actually the people on the call, you are aware there is a new meeting time. So it's scheduled now 10 p.m. PST, 1 p.m. EST, at least for me. So thank you for joining. That might be the reason some folks are not there today. But that new meeting time is now the one that we're going to go forward with. So that's for the housekeeping task. So let's jump straight into any comment before I jump on the working group updates. Anyone want to say a word or something before we get started into the working group updates?
Alex, there's one comment. This meeting page. You need to change the Monday at 9 p.m. PT. 9 a.m. PT should be 10 a.m. PT.
Very good observation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
Byung.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. That's definitely an oversight.
I
Anything
guess I
else?
would say Happy New Year to everyone. This is Sudhi. So this year I'm looking to participate more regularly and from Google in these meetings. So looking forward to working with you all.
Hi, Sudhi. Welcome, and great to have you. Now that I see you here, expect me to reach out, because I wanted to reach out to you during the election, but I couldn't get to you. So thank you for
Yeah, the
joining,
end
and
of the year has been super crazy.
that's fine. But I look forward to work with you as well and see how we can partner on making Nifio a success and SIG-1 a success.
Yep, let's do it, Alexis. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Sudhi. Anyone else want to add something before we get started to the working group updates?
Hey, Alexis, just to let you know, might as well get it all. Your meeting link is not the right one. Requires a password to be put in on that agenda.
I'm sorry, come again?
Your meeting link that's there, that Zoom link.
Zoom link.
Yeah, that goes, the one that's there requires a password, not the one that's on the calendar.
Okay, should be better without it then.
Yeah.
I think we all have, personal links anyway. I'll talk to Kenny, see if there is more of a general link that we can put in there. Thanks, Tim.
Alex, is the SIG.io is generic link. You don't need, these things are open meetings, right? It's only for the TSC, I think you have personal links. If I'm
Okay.
right.
Okay, so then fair enough. Then I need to take the action to fix the link.
Yeah, that's correct. We've decided that we'll use standing rooms, right? So the link is stable and it's also open, right, for the world. But yeah, you can see the link actually in Slack. I think the pinned links are all correct. So if you go to Slack for each channel and there's pinned links at the top, and there should be a Zoom link there. So you can just.
And that one is still accurate?
I think so, yeah. I didn't use it right now, but I've used it in the past, yeah.
Awesome. That's I like when we can fix things directly. Thanks, Tal. All right, anything else, folks, before we get started into the updates? Okay, so let's get started. For those of you that joined late, we already went over the housekeeping. So Happy New Year, everybody that joined late, and thank you for being here. So let's start with, do we have Sana? We don't have Sana. Let's start with working group 1 and working group 3 updates. So as you know, we said that for the short term, at least, we will merge these 2 working groups to avoid meeting duplication. And so as it looked like for now in our board, there is a couple of things that needs to happen into that joint effort. So the first one is to define a target nephew architecture. This is top of mind and really the first one we need to tackle. And then the other things so that's for the architecture mostly. And then for the RX, so for the release scope, by now, hopefully, all of you are aware about the user story template that we need to use and the required artifact that we require or expect as part of that user story definition, so we can better prepare the work with SIG2. Any question on the user story template or the required artifact before I go on to the other points? Okay, so there is 2 things that has been identified by Sana and myself. One is define more of a process, explain a little bit better the process, when we need to create the user stories and the timelines. Right now we're playing catch up for R3, but the goal is to try to identify some cutoff dates for when we need the user stories, when we need the required artifact, and when everything gets in motion for a release scope planning. Of course, we don't want to be fully waterfall. We want to be more agile, so things will evolve as time evolves. But we want to have a bit of a more structure and that we don't completely have today. So that's on us, and we'll be working a little bit on that, and we'll submit to this group for review once it's there. The other thing that popped up actually while attending the TSC last week is SIG4 security is actually its own SIG, which is good, but then they will come up with requirements. So how we funnel these requirements into the release scope is up for discussion and not necessarily defined either. So I'll be working with the SIG security team to iron that out. I don't know if there's any SIG security folks in the call today. I'm not sure. I don't think so.
And I can say, Alexis, they are working on 2 main topics I've been following. One is on secret management and the second is on service mesh. Just FYI.
Okay, I'm just going to capture that. Thanks, William. service mesh. Okay, that's good to know. But so I'm going to attend their meeting to make sure that I can share with them, because they're probably not aware about the user story template and the artifact that we discussed in that group today in the SIG one.
But they are, just to be clear, they are focused on requirement setting. So they are not doing anything yet. So they are focused on gathering requirements at the moment.
Right. But what we need to understand is, having a list of requirements is good. Actioning on it is key. And so this is more how.
Yeah, 100% agree. 100%
Yeah,
agree.
and so I want to see with them whether or not they will help us build an action plan for these requirements, or if they just stop at defining this requirement and then it's on SIG1 to build the action plan on what to do with them. Or SIG2 for what it's worth. That's where I don't know. I don't know the dynamics that we need to have with these security requirements.
No, I agree. And we have to see who does what and when and stuff like that.
Yeah. So that's what I want to get going, at least that discussion, so it doesn't fall into cracks. So right now, for the release scope, more importantly for R3, so I think most of the working group leads or leaders, so mainly working group 2, 4, and 5, I know you've been already defining user stories. We discussed some of them a couple of times already. So we need to, get some sort of a cutoff date, right, for firming up the scope for R3. And so I took this morning the quote unquote executive decision to have the firmer cutoff date being end of January. We need a date, right? So the date has been picked now, end of January. It can be a moving target. The goal is we really need to come up with a scope before end of January, actually, because R2 is expected to release in January. So by the time it's released, hopefully we have a scope for the next cycle for SIG2. And obviously SIG2 has a bunch of things that they want to still do in R3. So it's not just new additions that we provide, it's also what they have. So with all these things in mind, the main two key messages here is, for all the working group leaders, please try to work backwards from end of January. And second thing is, for those that want to participate in the release scope and planning, that meeting has been scheduled and is now every Friday at 9 a.m. PST. So we don't have yet the Zoom bridge. I'm working with Kenny on it. But as soon as we have the meeting bridge, then the meeting is scheduled. And so starting this Friday, we will start discussions on architecture, which is the first, and then scope. Karen?
Yeah, just a quick question. Does that mean then this meeting on the 29th of January will be the cutoff date, or are you talking about January 31st? Or are you talking about the actual Friday before that, which would be the 26th?
Yeah, so I don't, that's a good question, Kieran, but I don't think there is any, straight line. So let's
no, I was
try
just
to
saying, if you're saying end of January, maybe it would make more sense to tie it to this meeting on the 29th rather than having a, I don't know, just a thought.
Sure. I mean, I'm not against. The idea is this is still going to evolve, right? This user story, for those that are not completed by end of January, it's not if you don't make it by that time, you're not going to be in R3 type of thing. I don't think we're there yet at this point, because it's very new as a process that we're trying to put up. So we can I think let's do it, because I think I like your idea. So let's say January 29 is the cutoff date, because we need an actual date. But that doesn't mean everything that comes after won't make it. I just want to be clear with that. Okay, thanks, Karen.
Alexi,
Any other question? Sudi, go ahead.
So this meeting on Friday that you mentioned, I don't have it on the calendar. Is that something that I need to separately add, or?
I created this morning. I just put it in the calendar. I'm seeing in the chat, Tal is saying, let's use that same Zoom link. So actually, thank you, Tal. I like the suggestion, and I'll do that. So if you, so that's the meeting. I just
Okay.
need to add the Zoom bridge. If
Yeah,
you
somehow
are,
I didn't get it on my calendar. Maybe I need to resync or something. I'll check.
yeah, you might have to resync. I have a little bit of a struggle myself when something changes here
Yeah.
with the import on my personal calendar, but it's there, yes.
Okay.
Okay, where was I? Right there. Okay, so so the meeting link is sorted out as well, so that's perfect. Thank you, Tal. So any question on the release planning and architecture? Because that's really going to be Friday, but before I offload this discussion to Friday, anything for now that people want to bring up? Okay, and
Sorry, one question. Trying to find the unmute button. If we have other requirements that don't fall neatly into the existing working group or SIG buckets, is there a vehicle to bring those in, or do we bring them through this meeting?
we can bring them through this meeting. I saw your note, Karen. Sorry, I wasn't able to add anything between the note and now. But
No, that's fine. I should have said that earlier in the last week at some point. But...
Feel free. So yeah, the working behavior here that I'm expecting is whenever there is something, we need to add some items in that board. So every one of you should be able to add item. That board is, I don't own the board, and I welcome everybody to contribute. If you can't do that, but to being able to add item in the board, you need to be part of the Nephew GitHub organization. So if you're not, I welcome you to ping Steven or Kenny until they can delegate adding people in the Nephew GitHub org to others.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Karen. Because in the goal for SIG, go ahead, Ravi.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify this meeting on Fridays. Is it at the initial topic of discussion, what I understand is to kind of materialize on the Nephew architecture, but is it also kind of, is it combined with the working group 3 scope of user stories and so on?
Yes, yes, Ravi. So the Friday meeting is twofold. One is defining a Nephew architecture, and second is release scope. And I intend to have the meeting really, covering both aspects this Friday and onwards, because we need to make progress on both ASAP.
Oh, got it. Okay, so it's working group 1 plus 3. Oh, got it.
For the time being, we don't have a choice because, as I said many times, we're playing a bit of catch up here.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Ravi.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So nothing else to be added to these two, working group 1, working group 3. We'll move on to working group 2. So Tim, do you want to give us some, share with us some of the updates that you captured in there?
Yeah, so I mean, we've been progressing, and I'll get I've got access to the dashboard now. Stephen was kind enough to do that, so I'll do all the updates in the dashboard for this, by the way. So we did make some progress on the user stories last year, and we're at the point now where at least 4 of the 5 user stories are ready to progress to getting the 4 new pieces that network automation team has requested for their work, so we can have those discussions. And we're trying to do that by the end of January. We do have one use case that was interesting, though, as we went through this discussion, called the reconfiguration of the ORAN network function, where if you look at ORAN, that's typically done through the FCAPS process. And so what we were trying to do for release 3 was say we weren't using O1 for this because you need an SMO and SMO OAM whole business for that piece of it. We weren't ready for that just yet. So we were going to do a reconfiguration of the NF similar to what the 5G core had done, for when they did a reconfiguration of the bandwidth. We were going to do that for some of the NFs to show that capability. But there's some discussion that we're having in the O2 or in the ORAN working group to say if that's really necessary, right? Because we do have the O1 that's available there, and do we really need to show this if we're eventually going to get to the O1? So that's the only real issue that, from a scoping perspective and from a project perspective, that I think is still outstanding. The user story is there. The question is will we include it in release 3? That was the point. We do have, actually, once we're done with these user stories, we're not stopping for release 3. We did have 2 other tasks. One to start developing some requirements for service assurance that we can provide to working group 5, and then we want to investigate a little bit further this O1 interface and how it can be used and coexisted with the various NEPIO enablers, particularly the configuration aspects of the NF. So we've got to kind of figure that out. So those are 2, if you will, additional tasks that aren't use case related, but will probably, some of the outcome of that will end up being use case related. So we've got 2 more tasks that we're going to do independent of actually what gets delivered in phase 3. That's where we're at.
Okay, thanks, Tim. And I think it's what you stated at the end is great. It doesn't need to stop at R3, right? Things can go beyond, and whatever is that story that is a stretch, maybe make into R3, maybe it doesn't. But the goal is all the work that we're putting into it now, anyway, is going to be good to leverage in the planning if ready, right? So the idea is all the stories that will come from the various working groups. That's the point of that Friday meeting, is to identify what can make into the R3. And of course, I mean, I know you've been doing this, team, but for the others as well, it's key to keep in mind bringing up user story is great. Bringing up people to implement what the user story entail is key as well, right? So of course, this is open source, code is currency, but we welcome contribution not just at the definition of stories, but also at their implementation. And the SIG2 will only be able to take or to deliver on the work that we planned if there are people to deliver on the work, right? So we had some sort of a sense of ownership that needs to happen throughout SIG 1 and 2. So I'm just going to plant that seed now, because we might have to come back to it a couple of times in the short term. Any question for team or the ORAN team on what we're planning here? I see none. All right, thank you very much, team. So moving on to working group 4, Sandeep, are you on the call? I don't see Sandeep on the call. Is there someone on the call that could talk about UX and modeling? I recall that last time. Yes, Tal, go ahead.
Sure, yeah. Well, so I think most people have seen I've published an initial document on our models. Wim raised the question, an important one, that, you know, our models change and will the document change? I think my point right now is I'm just trying to kickstart this conversation to see in general terms what we have, and so we can actually start working with it and try to imagine different ways of looking at it. So there are a few really good comments in the document, but we haven't met yet. I want to say a very general comment. You know, I've during the past 6 months, I've been very much involved in SIG 1. Actually, I think most of my work was there. But now that I am SIG 2 chair, I'm trying to reorganize my workflow, and I really need to focus more there. So I'm not going to be able to take any leadership positions in these work groups, but I will participate. My point being that I hope somebody can really take the modeling issue and lead it, and I will assist. So I gave the opening shot, but we need to continue that momentum.
Thank you a lot, Tal. First, for the document. I think we reviewed some of it. And second, for putting the document together. Regarding what's come after, I do recall the comment from Wim about how to keep modeling up to date. I captured some of the notes from the previous meeting, and Wim captured some of his ideas. Is there anyone on the call that want to step up now to try to go and lead this working group and lead the modeling discussion and how things can be, I think we have a baseline that Tal started, and then it's how to keep this up to date and evolve it forward. Okay, well, I won't make that blank last longer. Nobody want to chime in. That's, feel free also to just come to me, go to Tal or whoever, come offline. If you believe that you have bandwidth and believe that the modeling is key and needs to evolve and have the will to do it, we are welcoming a contributor here and someone actually a leader for that working group.
I will point out that we have very strong participants, people with background in this. We have Vance here on the call. I'm not volunteering you, Vance, just name dropping you here. And we have Bernard from DT who cares about the topic a lot. He's not on the call today. I don't know if he has the bandwidth to lead this, but we have some great people. I think we just need somebody who would step up and kind of coordinate.
Okay, thank you, Tal. I'll send an email to the distro. I might have a more a broader reach sending an email to the distribution list. Okay, and I know Sandeep was involved as well to some extent, right? He did create a user story. The user story, I think, is more about the overall SDK and UI, so more the user experience aspect. He's not there on the call, but I'll follow up with Sandeep as well to see if modeling is something he'd like to lead. Okay, anything else for modeling? Anyone? Okay, so moving on to service assurance and policy. So Subhash, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, hi Alexis. So I was not able to update the board. So I have added my updates here in the document. So there are the 3 points. So last week, actually, we got some overlap with the TSC meeting. So we were not able to conduct the meeting last week. And we need to decide a new time for our meeting for the service assurance. So that we need to decide it. The second one, so before going for the holidays, we were discussing on the flow of the service assurance. How we so in that discussion, actually, we were also discussing our dependency around the observability and how will we interact with the observability and overall the overall flow. Also, we were discussing. So we are keep on discussing and brainstorming the all the aspects there. So that we are building up the document there. And also the user stories, the impact analysis was the user story that we prepared. So we are awaiting for any feedback. So yeah, these are the 3 updates from our side. So
Thanks, Subhash. So let me go one by one. For the new meeting time, is that something that you can do within the working group? As soon as you have the new time, just let me know, and I have access to the calendar, so I can update the calendar accordingly.
okay,
So just let me know when you have that time identified within the working group, if you can.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. For the user story, the feedback, I think we're going to start this Friday. So I know it's been open to feedback, such as the modeling or the UX one, and such as the ORAN one for a little bit now. Whatever feedback you received, we're going to start acting on these user stories starting this Friday. Of course, Friday we won't be able to tackle all of them, so we'll start with a few, but expect more feedback as we start more scrutiny on them. And finally, for the discussion, sorry, of the assurance flow, is that something that you've documented somewhere that we can have a look at?
Now I think I'll not be able to share yet because it's not handy for me actually currently. So
Okay.
maybe I'll share over the chat. Is it okay?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you believe it's in a good enough state, then maybe you could share to the whole group here.
Okay,
But not
sure.
today, probably next time. I understand you don't have it handy now.
Yeah. And yeah, actually for the second point, I was thinking around this lines also that we have the dependency on the observability. So I think we should start bridging that gap between service assurance and observability. Maybe trying to bring some synergy or maybe some common discussion between service assurance and observability because both are very important topic to make a complete assurance loop. So that I think we should also try to push towards that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. And I thought we said that, observability was some sort of a prerequisite, right, to service assurance.
Yeah, right.
And I thought
yes.
we stated that a couple of times, and I believe, well, I was under the impression the work was happening to make sure that, that dependency and these discussions were happening among the right people. Are you saying it's not happening for now?
Actually, we are discussing currently only the service assurance meeting, so how we'll be dependent on the observability. But actual discussion we did not proceed further, like the stakeholders in the observability to discuss with them like what development is happening there. So that I meant to say we need to have a more focused discussion. So
Okay.
that we there we need to go. Yeah.
Yes, Wim.
Does it not
Yeah,
make sense to have one group for observability and service assurance for now because they are so close that you
Yeah,
basically
but I
because
thought we did that already. So I
no
agree
no
with you,
no
Wim,
it's-
and I thought we did this.
yeah, I think you suggested that at some point, but I think it never it was implemented like that. So I think we should. I my proposal would be to if we try to find a new slot, we should probably try to combine them together. Is my
Okay, we have a SIG2 observability task force. So so Tal, you and I, we need to work this out. We need to make sure. Subhash, are you?
Yeah.
Let me. Okay. So yeah, I think it's a good idea to have these joint meeting with observability and service assurance, at least for the time being. I understand service assurance is broader in scope, or is different in scope than observability. But if you have dependency, then it makes sense that you start joining the observability team calls, or that there is only one call to start with. Tal, I might come and ping you, or actually maybe you can come up if you have some opinions or ideas on how to avoid duplication, but also foster, better use of every people's time.
Yeah, Stephen might have more insight. Stephen, oh yeah, he's on the call here. Do you have something, Stephen, to add?
Steven, do you think there is?
Yeah.
No, maybe he's not close to his mic.
Okay, yeah, well, we can
We'll follow up.
note about that. Yeah, we'll follow.
Okay.
I agree with, I also suggested the same thing like Wim is saying, like probably making a single focus group that's both observability and SA. Maybe a good idea to start with, and then because we are at a very fundamental level now, which is defining the metrics that we want, without which we cannot do any SA. So we start with that, and then if need be, then segregating the groups may be a good idea at the later point of time.
Okay, so let me take the action. I'll do the whatever needs to happen here. So we identify synergy. Tim?
Yeah, just a quick question. So I'm just curious for release 3, particularly, what is it that we are going to observe? Is it just the workload, or are you observing the behavior of the actual, how the function operates? Do you guys know? I'm just curious because I have to give requirements for assurance. I just need to know what level we're providing observability for in Release 3.
I think
At the broad level, I think that needs to be defined, right? I mean, what exactly that's why I suggested it's a very fundamental level. For example,
well, so we're not there yet, is what you're saying, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
we're not there, right? For example, even I don't
Okay.
know how instrumented is Porch is. Probably, according to me, Porch being the central part, getting the health of Porch and how it's managing packages, maybe a very first set of metrics. And other than that, our other operators, functions, things like that. Yeah, Wim, you have your hands raised.
Yeah, so the observability is focused on the network function side, by the way. So not on Porch or something, not on the management cluster. So I've been in the discussion. So the idea has been, so the challenge that we have from an observability point of view is the focus is really on the, let's say, the network function, because if you take, for example, infrastructure level, there is plugins that you can deploy to give observability on infra and workload and consumption and stuff like that. But what we are missing, or what we do not have, is metric from the NF itself.
Right.
Right.
That's what I was asking. So in Release 3, are you getting up into the NF or what? Let's call it application layer or whatever.
Okay, so what has been discussed in the observability track is how can we mimic, because we are also tied to OAI and 3.5GC, right? So how can we mimic or get information that, let's say, represents a network function, right? So, and there has been two proposals being, let's say, discussed. One is using eBPF as a way to consume it and extract data outside of the network function, because we cannot modify the code of the network function itself. And the second is to leverage some of the metrics they have and convert them in a way that is then consumable, because the format in which we are using the observability framework would be using Prometheus, right? So we would basically build either eBPF to Prometheus metric or whatever information they have and convert it towards a Prometheus environment. So these are the two things that we have been discussing, but non-actual proposal has been put forward yet. But that's kind of the...
So, but when for Release 3 is the intention, I'm just trying to get the scope in, right? So, is the intention then that, let's just say I have a DU that came from ORAN, or I take a UPF from, the core. Is the intention then is to create at least a minimal set of metrics for that DU or for that UPF that can be placed into the observability framework? Is that accurate? Not the workload basis, but the actual, function, if you will,
so
right?
So the actual function. So what we were trying to do is create a set of metrics, but they would be, so we are constrained. So ideal situation, Tim, is we have a network function that provides all the data, right? Okay. And so we just have to format it into Prometheus, which is probably not a big deal. The issue we have is we don't have these network functions which expose those metrics out of the box.
Okay, so because the reason why I'm asking is that's part of the requirements and that stuff that I wanted to give to the service assurance team. I just didn't know what you would have for Release 3. That's all.
Yeah, now what we have been discussing for observability is, can we build some things around the actual code of the network function? Give us some metrics that we could use. You see?
Yeah, I get it.
But then how is it going to help? How is, in a general practical scenario, how is it going to be helpful? Because every vendor would have, say, end of the day, the commercial solutions will actually deploy NFs from vendors, and they will have instrumented metrics available to them. So that's why I was thinking from observability perspective, for us, not instead of focusing on NFs, focusing on Nefio itself. How do we make Nefio framework more observable? Should be a higher priority, because
I'm just okay. So that's maybe to be discussed then, but at the moment that's not where the focus has been, Bala. And the idea was
I understand what you're saying, yes, but I was thinking probably we can discuss this further.
Yeah, so
And if I may, sorry, Tal, go ahead.
Sure. I wanted to suggest, obviously we're not going to solve or even delve into the very big observability challenges in NFV, right? It's huge, and there's a lot of frameworks and standards related to it, right? From Yang, NetConf, etc. So I think our point here, I'm trying to keep us focused, is I think we should be use case driven, right? If we develop a service assurance use case, what inputs would it need? And then if you onboard things into Nefio network functions using the Nefio SDK, there will be specific hooks that you would need to optionally, right? Again, if you want to participate in that use case, that you can add information to in order for the policies to be able to do their work, right? So I don't think we need to boil the ocean and have a general solution for observability. It's more about, again, thinking in terms of north, south, east, west integrations, right? There are observability systems, and it's more about what we need for Nefio to just do its job for the features that it supports. Everything else I don't think should matter to us.
Thanks, Tal, and I let this conversation go because we're short on an agenda today, so it's good. But I think the main message here is there is an observability call, and everybody that is opinionated, feel free to join. And I echo your point, Bala. We need to being able to instrument the platform, but I think any input needs to go in that call. And Tal and I will work to see how we can make the service assurance and observability team working closely together for R3. And at any point in time, Tim, if ever you have requirement that you'd like to suggest to service assurance, I don't think you need to wait for Nefio to be ready to implement them. You can still supply the requirement.
Hang on, Alexis. Just let's be clear here, right? I understand. So, but I have to know what enablers are there to help guide, what we're trying to focus on when we say we're going to provide these requirements. The other piece of it is that as an organization, right, there's some fundamental things that we have to decide what we're going to do. Or when we talk about observability and service assurance, and I think Bala, those guys were in WIM. That's part of that discussion, right? It says when we focus our use case, right, focus the team, are we focusing on, in the case of observability, on the workload or the infrastructure, or are we focusing on the NF functionality? That's a critical decision we should make for particular releases, release 3, release 4. From there, I can drive. If you say, hey, in Nefio, we're all about trying to do an observability framework for network functions, I can drive an ORAN team to build use cases to actuate that, right? But I don't want to do that, waste the time if we really don't have the commitment and the desire to do that within the Nefio community, because as Bala said, there may be commercial methods that do that. It gets into the configure NF problem that small one. But it elevates it, or it's a bigger problem with observability. So that's where I was looking at. We need some guidance, guys, as to when we say observability and service assurance, what is it that we need first, right, within Nefio? What's our principle for that, right? And then from there, I can drive use cases to help you guys out and requirements that go with that. But I don't necessarily have what the principle is yet that we're going to try to go for. Am I kind of clear on that? I mean, I'm just trying to make sure why I'm asking.
It makes sense. No, that makes sense, what you're asking here, Tim. And I think the answer that I heard is we don't have this principle defined yet, although the observability team has been focused right now on trying to understand how to do NF observability, from what I gather from what Wim said. I do echo with Bala that what is in scope for NFO is definitely the NF, but also the platform. And so we should also have a focus on working on making the platform observable. And so that's the various tools that come with Nefio as a platform. To my knowledge, SIG1 never created any requirement or any definition of what observability should be. And I think SIG2 has been running with this because they felt it's a need. So I think it's fine. If as SIG1, we need to come up with a more defined approach to observability, meaning the platform and then the NFs, I think it's on us to define that. Again, it shouldn't be necessarily SIG1 versus SIG2. SIG2 has been running with this for the longest of time now, and we're playing catch up through the service assurance file. Now it's where do we want to go? And I think that question, Tim, is is a good question, but right now I don't have the answer for the only reason that I don't think we had a lot of observability discussion in SIG1.
Yeah,
We only had service assurance discussions.
I'm all good with that. I just needed to make sure that I understood what where we're going as Nephew, SIG1, SIG2, but as Nephew, and then I can probably that will help frame the question for the next phase that I have, trying to put the team together, starting probably in March. So, okay.
Yeah. No, and I think this is where that action item that has been identified by Subhash, right? How the service assurance flow is dependent on observability. I haven't looked necessarily at the various use cases there, but that's the discussion we need to start having. Because of course, within Subhash and Working Group 5 team, there is a very clear identified use case, but it's on us to make sure that it's well, we need to understand properly what's going to be delivered in there. And that's where we need that sync with observability. I think this is where it started, and this is where we're going to. So I'm hoping that with that initial sync, we'll get a better picture.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, that was a good discussion, so thank you. Subhash, I don't know if there is anything else that you wanted to say here?
Yeah, it is covered, Alexis.
Okay,
Thank you,
Subhash. So, so with that, look, I don't need to burn the time. Is there anything anyone would like to say regarding SIG1, the meeting, the working groups updates, or any feedback overall that you have that you'd like to share? Now is a good time.
Maybe a quick question. So Alexis, we discussed this briefly before, but the idea that by the end of January, the scope will be locked. I understand you want to put a date, and we're not doing a waterfall approach, but is it more about an outline or draft, or what are you thinking? Do you really want to lock down the entire scope? Because I feel like there's a lot of big open discussions to be had. Probably will take a few months, so that they could affect our appetite for what we want to include in R3. And again, as I emphasized, and I think most people agree, is that we have to be careful about treating like the R3 release date as some hard-coded thing. We try to do what we can. If things fit in the R3 release date, they'll be there. If not, they'll continue evolving and be in R4. So I think about the scope as being more not release specific, but more about future specific, like 6 months, 1 year ahead, and a document that keeps evolving.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. This is actually, I hope this is how I reacted when we're asked to have a specific date. But I think some people like to work out of a date, which is fair. The date is not a strict line in the sand saying whatever comes before makes it, whatever comes after doesn't. So that's not the intention of the date. And the date is not about the scope. Actually, the date is about the user stories artifact to be defined. So maybe that's a little bit unclear. I'm not expecting the scope to be completely firmed by end of Jan, but I was requesting the various working group leads to make sure that their user stories artifacts are done by then, or are as mature as possible by then. Because starting this Friday, we're going to start reviewing these user stories and what it means in terms of deliverables and implementation. And so having these artifacts, we discussed it before, is key to help in that joint effort between SIG 1 and 2 to identify the work required. So that's one. And the second one is, I don't view this again as a strict line in the sand. And the goal, as we have these user stories defined, is not that then they can't be changed, they can evolve. And I'm hoping that eventually, as we mature a bit our process, we can get some timelines for the various working groups, and then a broader overall timeline for SIG1, and then we can get a roadmap of deliverable with SIG2. So we're not there yet, but that's definitely where I want to go. Yeah, I don't know if that's answering the question, Tal, but I'm with you basically, and we need to try to play a bit catch up, because R3 starts in less than a couple of weeks now, and so I want to make sure that there is something to work from when it starts.
Sure. So I guess I would just say initial artifact. For some being more advanced than others, but I have a feeling we're not quite there yet to actually have the artifacts.
No, I agree. Well, we need an architecture. Everybody has been asking for the architecture, which is a premise for building the artifacts. But look, we're catching up in R3, so it's not going to be perfect.
Got it.
Thanks, Tal. Sorry, I was reading Steven's note, and thank you, Steven. We'll reach out to you, Steven, to see what we can do there. All right, team, anything else? Any other comments on the scope or questions?
Not for me, thanks.
Before we wrap it up, maybe someone was having a glass of water, didn't hear. We're looking for a taker to lead the modeling working group. Anybody in the call right now want to step up and lead the modeling working group? All right, I've tried. I sent an email. Thank you everyone for today. Again, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2024. And let's talk to you guys next week.
Thanks.
Bye all.
Thanks, Alexis.
Thank you.